Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege. Privilege.
What up, what up? This your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is the TCMMA podcast. And that's right, UFC Paris is on deck. Last night we got past Dana White's Contender Series. Was it week, 7? So we've already made it through 7 out of 10. I don't know if we're going to make it the next 3. We're trying. Boy, it's rough midweek because we got all the predictions on Saturday, Tuesday, reactions on Tuesday and Saturday. I mean, it's tough trying to keep up, but these bye weeks from the UFC really help. So UFC Paris, you got Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis. Yes, you heard it right. A lightweight division main event. And guess what? There's lightweight fights up and down this card. Thank God. Because that's the best division in the UFC. Now, it's not great for the predictions. I'll tell you right now. As I always say, the lightweight division is the hardest to predict in the UFC. But at the same time, it's one of the best divisions to watch because every fight is dynamic. I mean, it's great. I mean, you got to have everything. You got to have striking. You got to have takedowns. You got to have takedown defense. You got to have all that. I mean, all that is on display. And if you're lacking in one of those areas, you're not going to do well in the lightweight division. So we will get to the predictions here in short order. But first, let's cover some of the news. You got number 1, Conor McGregor expected to leave UFC after contract ends. That's according to Forbes. Right? That's an article by Forbes today. And this is what I've been trying to tell you. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Also, Herb Dean shuts down Joe Rogan. Toxic referee critics at UFC 306. So he's kind of responding to Joe Rogan and critics from his UFC 306 referee job in the main event. Right? O'Malley and Dvalishvili. Remember when he stopped it like 15 seconds in? You got all that and different things happening throughout the fight. So people are now, responding and reacting to that. Also, Dricus du Plessis exposes poor analysis of his fighting style. What are you talking about? Question mark. And he did that interview on Shaq MMA. So we'll get to some of those comments during the show. UFC secures major signing of former 2 Division 1 champion Rainer de Ritter. And that's great and everything, but the guy he's fighting, I'm not so sure you want that to be your first fight. It's going to be a true test. And then finally, Dana White offers details on 2025 boxing plans. I'm coming in blazing. I'm coming in hard is what Dana White's saying, and I just cannot believe it. I just cannot believe it. So we'll get into these topics. Let's circle back and begin first and foremost with Conor McGregor expected to leave the UFC after his contract ends. And this is the big delay, right? You had the toe thing, and I'm sure the UFC's like, sure, yeah, pull out. Let's keep extending this thing because we don't want your contract to end. And when it does, we want you to be 38, 39 years old at this rate, right? But Conor McGregor's kind of alluding to this without really exactly saying it, so you don't really know what the plans are. But yeah, he wants to get into boxing, obviously. He wants to do some other things, and it's just hard for me now to see a major outlet like Forbes writing about this. And this is what I've been talking about for months, is it's like I just can't believe McGregor's just going to resort to show fights. I know you get to a certain point, and it's like you just want to do the big show fights, but it's like, for what? For what exactly? For the money? No, I don't think so. For what? All these show fights are great, like Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. They're fun. But if you're not going for a title, like, what are we doing here? But I expect that from Jake Paul. Mike Tyson's 58, whatever, something like that. So, I don't expect them to really be going for titles. Tyson's too old. Jake Paul just is fighting anyone he can. Jake Paul's fighting show fights, but he wasn't once a champion and aspiring and training to get back there. So what are we doing here, McGregor? I don't understand it. I wish he would come out and respond and say, no, it's not true. I want to fight in the UFC for the next 4 to 6 years and then retire. Whatever. Because if you're not going for the title, why am I watching? That makes me uninterested. Especially if you're going to be in the main event, right? Because you're not going to have a Conor McGregor fight if he's not in the main event. I mean, the UFC is just not going to do that. So what are we doing here? I don't know. I don't know. And we beat this topic so many times that it's just hard to keep going after it. But it's like I just don't understand what we're doing here. Now, as we continue through the topics, make sure you get into the chat room.
A-team in the house.
And when you jump in, you're going to hear that. Check it out.
A-team in the house.
Yeah, you got to roll that S at the end.
House.
Got to roll it at the end. That's what you hear when guys get in the chat room, right? Because if you get in the chat room, you're a member of the podcast, a member of the channel. You got special privileges. You understand? So jump in that chat room right now, and we'll read those comments as soon as the moment you get in there. We'll keep peeking back and forth to see what's happening. So as we move forward, Herb Dean shuts down Joe Rogan. Toxic referee critics at UFC 306. My job is to do something about it. So, he spoke to Helen Yee, and, here's some of the things he had to say. I've seen on social media people have spoken on me about calling the fighters to do more action. And that's what I've always done. I can tell you what I tell fighters in the rules briefing. I tell them anytime that I'm going to have an intervention, I'm going to talk to you first. If I'm going to stand you up, I'm going to say, let's work, or I'll clap. I'm not here to be anyone's parent or anything. And we want people's personalities to be able to shine. That's what makes our sport fun. Right? So, he's just kind of going on because they're getting on him in different ways. He says, your job is to coach the fighter, and my job is to do something about it. So you remember in the fight against O'Malley, he stopped the fight 15, 20 seconds in, and you're kind of like, what's going on here? Because like Merab Dvalishvili is yelling at the corner of O'Malley, and then Herb Dean stops it. And my first thing on it was, why are you stopping the fight? If Merab wants to sit there and yell at O'Malley's corner and take a chance of getting KO'd, that's his problem. But by stopping the fight, you take Sean O'Malley's opportunity away from him. Just like when Merab got up with 2 seconds left and O'Malley came and hit him from behind. I mean, you got to defend yourself at all times. And if the ref's stopping the fight, then evidently you don't have to defend yourself at all times. And then they're talking about the change of positioning and all that. But Herb Dean, very clear, right? I'm with Herb Dean on that. Let's work, or he'll clap if he's going to stand you up because of inactivity. So it's not like I'm getting on Herb Dean for stopping the fight in the first 15, 20 seconds. I guess if you're going to stop it, do it then before anything happens so you don't really lose anything. But at the same time, I was like, why is he stopping the fight? As far as the stand-ups and stuff, that's just part of the game. And I know a lot of times, especially from Joe Rogan, as I hear him commentate, it's like he wants it to be more of a natural fight environment. If this guy's laying on another guy and the other guy can't get up, that's his problem, sort of. So I understand where Joe Rogan's coming from too, because the UFC is the closest thing to a real life encounter, a real life fight. It's the closest thing. Like we watched boxing back in the day and we thought that was the real fight. And then you realize, wait, every time they hug each other, they got to break it up. In real life, they're not breaking it up. Someone's getting tossed to the ground. They might get, full mounted, and it might be over. Right? So UFC is the closest thing to a real fight you're ever going to see. So whenever there's interventions, people get upset about it. And I get it. People also get upset when guys are on the ground for 20 minutes in a 25-minute fight. They want the ref to step in. So you have it both ways, right? You have it both ways. And, the ref is never going to win. You either stop the fight too early or too late. And, God forbid you stop it 1 second too early. If you stop it 5 seconds too late, people are going to talk about it, but it'll die out. If you stop the fight 2 seconds early, you'll never hear the end of it. So being the referee is the toughest job in all of sports, really. In all sports. Football too. Because when the referee makes a bad decision for the home team, the crowd is going crazy. I mean, I grew up in Miami. The crowd is going to be on your behind. And that's where the chant, ref you suck, came from. And now it's all over every arena. But we started that in Miami. Please believe it. If you don't know, ask somebody. Moving forward, Dricus du Plessis exposes poor analysis of his fighting style. What are you talking about? Question mark. So he spoke to Shaq MMA. He said, I think the biggest misconception, and it is changing, it should be, because in the beginning people were like, this guy is just falling around, throwing shots, sloppy, right? Now people are, he says, he goes on to explain, people are breaking down his style. People are going, look at his plan. He steps inside with his foot and then outside. And I go, what? No. They try to scientifically break this down, and I'm going how technical it is. It's not at all. It's a fight. So can you imagine, you're just sitting there in the moment, you're in a fight, and people are breaking down your steps in slow motion, and they're looking at him step in here, and then he moves here. And, Dricus is just more like, I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm just, you're trying not to get KO'd, and you're trying to KO somebody. And you're trying to defend takedowns and not put yourself in bad positions, and you're looking to land takedowns. There's a lot going on. But when you try to break this stuff down in slow pace, I mean, these guys' minds are working so fast that to slow it down, you're sitting there trying to break down his one left step forward, and he's already thinking 5 different things in that moment. And it's processing very fast. So he's like, what are you guys talking about? Why are you trying to break this thing down? You're not going to do it. But again, either way, you can't win, The same people who are critics of him are now like, oh my gosh, look at that left step forward. Look at that big right hand. Look at it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. As if he's doing something amazing. So, Dricus and Herb Dean going after people, man. You gotta love it. Get on. Call them out. Call them out for what it is. I love it when they do that. Because the media is going to call you out. You better believe it. Moving forward, UFC secures a major signing of former 2 Division 1 champion Reiner de Ritter. If I said that right, if not, I apologize. Again, if you're not in the UFC, I don't know much about you. You guys say that you got to watch all these fights and break them down and know what you're talking about. There's like 300 fighters in the UFC alone, if not more. Like, I don't know all the fighters, okay? That's why I watch Dana White's Contender Series religiously, because I'm trying to learn about all the guys that are going to be coming into the UFC before they get there, so I can at least see them one time. But at the end of the day, it's much easier when these fighters have been around for a while. But the thing is this newcomer is going to be facing a guy named Gerald Meerschaert. And you hear that name and you're like, yeah. I've seen this guy fight many times. Now, he doesn't always show up, but when he shows up, he's capable of submitting you, man. And ever since he got KO'd by Hamza Chimaev in 17 seconds, he's looked amazing for the most part. He's looked amazing. And that was so long ago, but just that experience, even though it was 17 seconds, after the fact, he's like finishing people, submitting people. This guy is really good. And Ritter still has 2 losses. So we'll see how good this guy really is, because he's not getting a softball coming in, right? He's not getting a softball. I mean, Meerschaert's not one of the best in the division by any means. But when he fights well, he looks like he's one of the best in the division. So we'll see what happens on that night. So that's coming very soon. So big signing. And, the funny thing is we're even talking about this is because last night in the post-fight press conference for Dana White's Contender Series Week 7, Dana White was saying, caught off guard, didn't even know about the signing. He didn't even know about the signing. And he didn't know about it because he's busy offering details on his 2025 boxing plans. And it's like, oh man, what are we doing here? Like, I like that other people are stepping in and doing things at a high level for the UFC. Like, you don't just see Dana White now, you see all 4 guys at the Contender Series. And it's like, cool, but that's the future, man. That Dana White's trying to save boxing. And meanwhile, the UFC is, over the next 20 years, at some point, is very capable of turning into boxing. And I wish he was already setting up a succession plan. Not because he's trying to get out, but because if anything ever happens, or 20 years, 10 years from now, whatever, he decides to step away, what's the succession plan? And when you got multiple guys involved and then they don't agree, that's when guys start splintering and start doing different things, And eventually, if the UFC breaks and you have a couple good guys go to another promotion, and then you got 2 heavyweight champions, for example, but then those 2 promotions don't want to let the guys fight, that's what boxing is right now. And that's why it's like irrelevant. And that's why you're seeing all these big show fights and not like, less people care about the actual real fights than the show fights in many cases. You still got your big names. Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Usyk. You still got the big names. But you don't know who's ranked number 5 in any one of these divisions. You have no idea. But in the UFC, you probably know who the top 5 are. And that's the difference. So when Dana White talks about going into boxing, it makes my heart start pounding. Because I'm like, and he doesn't know about a guy getting signed. It's like, when Dana White leaves, that's the beginning of the end. Not that day, but, slowly. You won't even know for 5 or 10 years, but things will start splintering in different directions. And that's not good. So, but he said people have been talking about the demise of boxing for 30 years. And we're still here talking about boxing right now. I have always had an idea of how I thought it should be done. I don't know if that's possible, but we're going to find out. I'm coming in blazing. He's coming in ready. And that makes me nervous. Because that means you can only do so much. And that makes me believe that other people are going to start making high-level decisions in the UFC. And of course, Dana White will always be in the know, but he will start letting other guys sign people and make decisions, and that just makes me nervous. That just makes me nervous. Because you're giving up something there. And, maybe he knows more than we do. Maybe he knows he's on his way out of the UFC. Who knows? I don't think so. But it just concerns me, man, that, now if you have one guy at the top making decisions, that's different. But if you have a committee, there's going to be times when people don't agree. And, they're going to want to make a statement and be heard and all this. And you could eventually splinter the sport. And just hope that doesn't happen. But this is the first stage in it. Make no mistake about it. Now, we're going to jump into UFC Paris. And before we get some of these high-level main card fights, which there's 6 of them, right? And how many are lightweight? So we got 2 lightweight in the main card. And then as I look down, got a couple light heavyweight. We got a 3rd lightweight. I know there's more than that. A 4th lightweight. Yeah, so 4 lightweight fights in this one. This is big. But it kicks off with Balaji Oki versus Chris Duncan. And these guys both are really good. Duncan's the favorite. Oki's the favorite. He's 9-1. Duncan's 11-2. It's Belgium versus Scotland. First fight of the day. I say day because this thing's at 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. And usually I prepare everybody around me. I haven't prepared anybody yet. So, if you're listening, I'm going to be busy at 12 o'clock on Saturday. Women's bantamweight division, Nora Cornell is 8-1. Jacqueline Cavalcanti, 7-1. So, and these are big fights, but what we're learning in these women's divisions, at least today, is the older fighters with experience are carrying and leading the division. So Cornell is 8-1, she's 34. If she can put together some wins, 36, 37, you never know, but I don't see that happening. Cavalcanti out of Portugal, she's still 27. So, these next 4 to 6 years don't matter so much more than getting experience. Because we've seen right now with Rockwell Pennington was, 11-10, 10-9, something like that at one point. And now, boom, 6 straight wins, is peaking around 36, 37 years old. A little bit different than the men's divisions, which have a lot more depth, right? The women's divisions are still building that depth. It's not quite there. It's getting better. But when that depth gets there, you're going to see some of these 32, 33-year-olds, drop into 36, 37-year-olds because they're slowing down. But it's not there yet because the 36 and 37-year-olds have the experience and there's not enough depth to take them down yet, right? Because the levels before the UFC are not built strong enough like in the men's divisions. You got a flyweight fight between Daniel Perez, 16-6 versus Victor Altamirano. We heard of him from Mexico. So Spain versus Mexico. Altamirano's 12-4. He's actually the favorite in this one, but it's very close. Women's bantamweight division, Eileen Perez, 10-2. Daria Zalesniakova, I believe, 9-1. So Argentina versus Russia. And remember, this thing's in Paris. So we'll start heating up here near the middle to end of the prelims. You got from France, Taylor Lapilus. So he'll be the home crowd favorite. He's 20-4 and very good. Taking on USA's Vince Morales, he's 16-7. Lapilus is the favorite. Then you got Ludovic Klein, who's kind of, had all that hype at first, and now he's kind of slowed down a little bit with the hype, but he's still really good. He's 22-4, taking on Roosevelt Roberts, who's 12-5. This is a lightweight fight, and dang, am I seeing that right? Feel like I'm seeing things. 11.5 to 1 favorite right now. That's pretty wild. And we just saw a contender series last night. The 8 to 1 underdog won, so anything is possible. And it's a lightweight fight. It's interesting. Then you got a light heavyweight fight between undefeated French fighter Umar Sy taking on Da Woon Jung, who's very experienced, fighting out of Korea. He's 15-5. Following that, light heavyweight division, a lot of fights here at Paris. Ian Kudalaba versus Ivan Ursulin. He's a newcomer, I believe. He's 14-3. Kudalaba 17-10. But yet, it's basically a toss-up fight. It's basically a toss-up. So that's the prelims. There's like 8 fights in there. And that's always interesting because that means they're going to try to fit these 8 fights in 3 hours. The fights are going to be boom, 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 boom. Like, if they don't get a couple KOs, like, and there's a lot of decisions at first, you're going to see the next guys walking out like a wrestling match, right? Next fight's up, let's go. So they're going to be pumping them out early on here unless you get some people pulling out, which I don't think will happen. So we get into the main card. Here we go. Let's get into the predictions. Lightweight division, Farisium, 15-4. Matt Frivola, 11-4. France versus USA. And pretty much everybody, or every main card fight has a French fighter. So this is only the first one. So Farisium's going to be the home crowd favorite. And I can tell you now, we went against the home crowd favorite several times on this card. So pay attention very, very closely. Let's get into the first fight right now. In the lightweight division at UFC Paris, you got Farisium taking on Matt Frivola. Ziem comes in at 15-4. He's the hometown favorite, right, from France. Matt Frivola, American, he's 11-4. Now, Ziem's going to be 4 inches taller at 6'1". He's 27 years old. Frivola, 34. Ziem has a 4-inch reach advantage. They both stand right-handed. Frivola's more active, 3.7 significant strikes per minute to 2.7 for Ziem. Now, when you get into takedown ability, Matt Frivola is, better, more active there too, landing like a takedown on average. Just shy of that, but per round. 1 takedown per round. Now, Farisium, 67% takedown defense. Is going to need every bit of that in this fight. But the guy's coming off 3 wins in a row since getting finished by submission to Terrence McKinney. He's beaten McCall Figlock. Decision. Jai Herbert, decision. And Claudio Puelis, decision. So the guy's on a little bit of a run. Now, Frivola, just 42% takedown defense, not great. Lost to Benoit Saint Denis. Seems like there's several guys on this card that lost to him by first round KO. He did beat Drew Dober. Think about that, by KO. Adman Azater, KO. Gennaro Valdez, KO. So this guy is certainly capable of finishing his opponents. It's going to be an interesting fight, when you look at this, because which Matt Frivola is going to show up? The guy that beat Jalen Turner, Drew Dober, and Atman Azater, or the guy that lost to Terrence McKinney? So it seems like he beats fighters he's supposed to and loses to guys that are on the upper echelon. McKinney's probably the lower of those guys when you look at Arman Sarukian and Benoit Saint Denis. But listen, I got to go with, and I can't believe this again, I mean, we're going against the French fighters on this card up and down. It's either going to go great or we're going to pay for it. We'll see. Because when guys fight at home, they tend to do better. But I got to go against Ziem in this one. I like Matt Frivola, man. I mean, I know it's a toss-up, but he's slightly better striker, and he lands more takedowns. Ziem doesn't have great takedown defense. Maybe the home crowd will give him a boost, but listen, I like Matt Frivola to get the win here. Probably by decision. I'd love to see him get the finish. He needs one, right? Because he always gets the finish. You don't want to see him go to a decision, which could lean more towards Ziem in the 3rd round. So I think Matt Frivola's probably got to get the KO to win. So I'm leaning that way. But regardless, Matt Frivola wins this fight, in my opinion, to move to 12-4, lightweight division, UFC Paris. Yeah, so we started out here in the main card against the home crowd. And I know I did this a few times throughout all these predictions. Can't remember if it's a main card or the prelims. And I get to the end and I'm like, oh boy. because you would expect the French fighters to win a few fights just because it's at home, right? It's at home, so you would expect them to win a few fights, but not in this one, man. Matt Frevola is a strong dude. Barisium's good too. It's going to be interesting, and really, it's a toss-up when you look at the odds. I mean, Ziem's the favorite, but barely. So I'm looking forward to this one. Looking forward to a close fight, but I think Frevola's got to get the KO, and that's what I'm banking on here, which isn't always easy in a lightweight division, but possible. Now, in the next fight, a lot of people were talking about this guy, Morgan Charry, but he's 19-10. That's concerning. Taking on Gabriel Miranda, Brazilian, who's 17-6. Brazilians are known for finding ways to win regardless of the odds. So this is going to be an interesting one, especially because Morgan is darn near 6-1 favorite, maybe more. But you look at the records and you're like, wait, let me dig deep into this, and why is he such a heavy favorite? You know, why is this guy such a heavy favorite? Does it hold up? I don't know. Let's get into it right now. In the featherweight division at UFC Paris, you got Morgan Charry taking on Gabriel Miranda. And this is going to be an interesting fight. Let's get into it and I'll explain why. Morgan Charry is 19-10, right, from France, fighting at home. Miranda, Brazilian, 17-6. He's 3 inches taller at 5'11". He's 34. Charry, 28. Miranda, 2-inch reach advantage, 71-69. Both guys stand right-handed. Now, in terms of activity, that leans to Morgan Charry, who lands nearly 4 significant strikes per minute to 3.5 from Miranda. So you're looking at 7 to 8 significant strike difference throughout the fight. Now, Miranda, the Brazilian, wants to take the fight to the ground because in 17 wins, he's got 16 submissions. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. He lands over a takedown and a half per round. Charry lands like one every other round. But listen, Morgan Charry's got an 82% takedown defense, and that's why he's a heavy favorite, nearly 6-1 in this fight. 87% takedown defense. And against Chepe Mariscal in his last fight, it was a loss, split decision. Chepe's a guy that lands a takedown on average per round, but Chepe only landed 1 takedown in that fight compared to 2 for Morgan Charry. But what happened was Chepe landed 71 significant strikes compared to 49. So that's a big difference. Before that, Charry beat Manolo Ticini by KO in the first round. And that's all we got, just 2 fights really for both guys. Now, Gabriel Miranda's coming off the win against Shane Young by submission, right? Showing that he can submit a UFC level fighter. Before that, he lost to Benoit Saint Denis. What a way to come into the UFC, right? Hey, you want to fight Benoit Saint Denis? Sure. He gets KO'd in the second round. And he's been KO'd before, and certainly Morgan Charry is capable of KOing guys like he did against Manolo Ticini. So that's probably why he's a heavy favorite. But listen, I don't sleep on the Brazilians, and I don't sleep on a Brazilian who has 16 submissions in 17 wins. Miranda's not trying to stand and strike with you. He's trying to do that just long enough to shoot in and get a takedown. Now, when the fight does go to the ground, Charry is tough there too. But his first goal is to defend the takedown, keep the fight standing. So that you're going to have this playing out throughout the fight. And Chepe couldn't really land takedowns against Morgan Charry, but guess what? Gabriel Miranda is a different animal, right? This is a guy that's going to be relentless, going for takedowns. I looked at this, the odds, and I said, Morgan Charry is a 6-1 favorite. What are they seeing? And I'm trying to dig deep and find it, and I get it. But he's still got 10 losses, right? It's not like he's 19-2. He's 19-10. So listen, I'm going with the heavy underdog here in Gabriel Miranda. I think Miranda's going to pull this thing out. You know, I'm probably going to be wrong somewhere on this card because I'm going against the French fighters a lot. But at the same time, when you're going up against a Brazilian, you got to prove to me that you can beat him. And when a guy's got 16 submissions, I got no choice but to go with Gabriel Miranda. And it's hard to go against a heavy favorite. But I just like Miranda to win this thing, hopefully by submission, in my opinion, to move to 18-6, featherweight division, UFC, Paris. Yeah, and the thing is, listen, I don't bet on this stuff. I'm not against it. Do what you want to do. I'm glad that you have the right to do it. It's a free market society. Go for it. But I don't bet because I don't want to compromise my predictions. And I'm dead serious about that. When I bet, I lose money. When I make predictions, I'm right a lot more than I'm wrong. Isn't that funny how that happens? Because you start looking at the odds and you're like, well, if I bet this guy, I could make more money. He's the underdog. But every once in a while, a fight comes along and I'm like, I don't understand what people are seeing here. And maybe Miranda still falls. But to be such a heavy underdog, that really opens my eyes, man. And I'm like, man, really got me thinking this week. Should I do something? Doubtful I will, because I never do. But a lot of times in these close situations, I go with the Brazilian. This isn't a close situation. And Morgan Sherry is going up in the odds day by day. And I look at the records and I'm like, forget the records. I look at his record and I say 10 losses? And he's like a 6 to 8 to 1 favorite? That's crazy to me. Maybe he wins, but that's a lot of risk for a little reward, if you ask me. So I got the Brazilian, man. Gabriel Miranda. 16 submissions in 17 fights, and he's nearly a 5 to 1 underdog. Come on now. I got to see that to believe it. As we move up to the welterweight division, 170 pounds. Yes, sir. Kevin Doucette, 10-2, fighting out of France, taking on USA's Brian Battle. He's 11-2, and obviously this is going to be a highly interesting fight for both France and USA. I mean, Brian Battle's not like the best we got to offer, but he's still a guy with a lot of potential who could still considerably get better and better every fight, but we're not sure yet. That's why it makes this fight very interesting. He's got to be on top of his game to get the win. Let's get into it right now. In the welterweight division at UFC Paris, you got Kevin Doucette taking on your boy Brian Battle. This is 10-2 versus 11-2. France versus USA. French fighters up and down this card for obvious reasons. The fight is in Paris, right? The card's in Paris. Doucette, 1 inch taller, is 6'2". He's 31. Battle, 29. They're in their prime. They're in the best physical shape they might ever be in. This is the perfect time for these two guys to go at it. Battle, 2-inch reach advantage, 77 to 75. Both guys stand right-handed. Both guys active on the feet, but Doucette over 8 significant strikes per minute so far. Battle 4.5. Both guys land like a takedown every 3 rounds, although Doucette is slightly above that, but right around there. 1 takedown every other round for both guys. Doucette, 100% takedown defense. Just 2 UFC fights. Beat Song Keenan by decision, but dominated 134 to 62 in significant strikes, but got submitted by submitted Kiefer Crosby. A fight that wasn't going his way early, right? He was down 39 to 20, or he trailed 39 to 29 in significant strikes, so Crosby was getting off, but Doucette has the takedown game if necessary. Battle, 47% takedown defense. Remember that stat. He's come up to no contest with Angelusa. He did beat AJ Fletcher by submission. Okay, so there's that. KO'd Gabe Green. Lost to Renato Moicano by decision. You would expect that, though, right? The fact he lasted all 3 rounds is incredible, because Renato had 7 takedowns, led 43 to 3 in significant strikes. He just got dismantled by Renato, but that's to be expected. Doucette, not as good as Renato Moicano, but he is capable of controlling this fight on the ground if he wants to. He doubles up Brian Battle, at least right now, with over 8 significant strikes. That number will come down to 4, 5, 6 as he faces better competition. But right now, I like Brian Battle. I'd like to see him win this fight, right? But Kevin Doucette, to me, is just better. He should win this fight, right? He should win this fight, even though he's the underdog. But when you look at, this is one of those things where I look at the odds and I'm like, how do they have Brian Battle as the favorite? It's not to say he's not going to win the fight, but Doucette is very active on the feet and can go to the ground. Now, is Battle better once it gets to the ground? Possible, right? And people may be looking at that, but I just think Kevin Doucette fighting in Paris is going to win this fight to move to 11-2. That's my opinion. Welterweight division, UFC, Paris. Yeah, and it's interesting. I really forgot that Brian Battle was the favorite. So this is going to be one of them weeks. Either we're going to really take off this week or we're going to crash. And it's really hard to see which way it's going to go, because I'm making picks this week without abandon. A lot of confidence, right? We're 18-3 in the main event. We're 228 and 147 on the year, so we're really starting to pick up the pace now. You know, we're trying to get that important plus 100 wins to losses, and then it really gets fun after that. But this week could be the week that everything could fall apart. I'm just pre-warning you because I'm going against France in key fights. I'm going with the underdogs, and you know the French crowd is going to be ready to go, and it's very possible that they just go 6-0 in the main card. But I'm not picking them all, that's for sure. In the next one, you got William Gomez versus Joe Anderson Brito. I'm looking forward to seeing this fight, and they keep playing with the Brazilians, man. You keep wanting to bring in the Brazilians into another country against the home fighter, William Gomez from France, and you keep playing with these Brazilians, and they're going to make you pay. I believe that a lot of times. But it's got to be close for me to go with the Brazilian. Is this one close? Let's get into it. Find out. In the featherweight division at UFC Paris, you got a good one here. William Gomez versus Joe Anderson Brito. I like this. Gomez, good fighter, 13-2 from France. Brito, Brazilian, 17-3. Oh, baby. And this is in Paris, right? So Gomez will be the crowd favorite for sure. But Brito's the favorite on paper. Let's get to it. Gomez, 4 inches taller at 6 feet. He's a tall featherweight. Couple tall featherweights on this card, actually. Brito, 2 inches taller. 2 years older at 29. Gomez is 27. It's actually Gomez who's got the reach advantage by 1 inch, 73-72. He's a southpaw, left-handed fighter. Brito stands right-handed. Brito 3.4 significant strikes per minute. Gomez 2.6. So not great, but he finds ways to win. He also lands like a takedown every 3 rounds. Brito's going to land 1 on average per round over his career. But Gomez, how does he do it? 81% takedown defense. Plays into what he wants. He wants to keep the fight standing when possible. Coming off the KO win over Giannis Gamori, 52 significant strikes in that one. He beat Francis Marshall by split decision, which was a kind of a weird fight because Marshall controlled Gomez for a good portion of that fight, but Gomez led 27-15, and the judges on that night in several fights were giving the wins to the guys who were landing more strikes, forget the takedown and control time. He also beat Jarno Aaron, so he's undefeated right now in the UFC at 3-0. Now Brito, 62% takedown defense. That shouldn't matter in this one. Coming off the KO win against Jack Shore, beat Jonathan Pierce by submission. KO to Weston Wilson. His last loss was to Bill Algeo back in January of 2022. That was a good fight. Both guys had 2 takedowns, but Algeo led 59-40 in significant strikes. So game plan for Gomez, keep this fight standing. You don't want to go to the ground with Brito if you don't have to. That's how he's been successful, over 80%, stopping 4 out of 5 takedowns. That's impressive. Brito wants to get the fight to the ground. Will make, multiple attempts or try multiple times to land takedowns. That's going to define the fight. Because if the fight stays standing, Brito still has a good chance to win, but most guys that fight Gomez have better stats and are more active on the feet in terms of significant strikes per minute, just like Brito. But if he can defend the takedowns, he finds a way to KO you, finish the fight, or, he slows down his opponents. But to me, Joe Anderson Brito is too versatile. Right? He's too versatile. He's cool with the fight standing. If he knows he's got an advantage on the ground, he'll take it there. And I think that gives him a lot of potential to win this fight and really keep rolling. But William Gomez is no slouch, man. He's 13-2. He's going to be hyped up. He's fighting at home. It's tough to go against these French fighters, but I got to go with Brito to get the win here, in my opinion. So move to 18-3, likely by decision. Featherweight division, UFC Paris. Yeah, and you already know when I'm talking for a while, and there's a Brazilian fighter. I'm sitting there contemplating, am I really going to go against a Brazilian? Nah, I'm not. And here's why, right? That's what's happening in that situation. And the bottom line is I'm not going against Joe Anderson Brito, even though William Gomez is really good. I still believe in the Brazilians in rough situations, especially when they're close fights, and this is a close one. So we got Joe Anderson Brito winning that one. Please believe it. Now, as we get into the co-main event, I really like this one, man. Huge middleweight fight. Huge middleweight fight. Now, Zauerdina Mavov, top 5 guy versus Brendan Allen. 2 guys that are on the rise and reaching that point. And this is a good separation fight for who really is the top 5 guy, maybe top 4. And it's going to be very interesting. Let's get into it right now. In the middleweight division, your co-main event at UFC Paris. I love this one. 2 high-level middleweight fighters, Nazaruddin Imavov taking on Brendan Allen, and Imavov is a top 5 guy. And Brendan Allen's right there. He might be number 5. Imavov 14-4, getting the big one over Cannonier in the last fight to get here. Brendan Allen is 24-5. This guy has a ton of experience. This is France versus USA in Paris, right? So obviously you're getting the French fighter in this one. Now Imavov is 1 inch taller at 6'3". He's 29. Allen 28. 2 guys right in the prime, early prime window. Both guys equal reach. Both guys stand right-handed. Imavov slightly more active, 4.6 significant strikes per minute to exactly 4 for Allen. So you're looking at, 8 to 10 significant strike difference. Not a big deal. Allen does land more takedowns, just slightly more than a takedown every other round. Imavov will get one once every 3 rounds. Now Imavov 74% takedown defense. Coming off back-to-back wins over Jared Cannonier and Roman Dolidze. He KO'd Cannonier, which is huge, in the 4th round. Won a majority decision against Dolidze. That's kind of where it gets confusing, right? If you're going to KO Cannonier, you would expect him to KO or dominate Roman, which he actually did dominate. 112-34? And it was a majority decision? No takedowns? Get out of here. Yeah, so Imavov should have won that by easy unanimous decision. He did lose to Sean Strickland, but fought decently well. It was 182-123 in significant strikes. Sean Strickland does that to his opponents, right? Outpaces them. He also beat Joaquin Buckley, Edmund Shavazian, and Ian Heinisch. So he's got a good resume built up and doesn't lose very often, right? Now, all in Brendan Allen, 58% takedown defense. That could be a problem. But he's rolling, beating Chris Curtis by split decision. Paul Craig, sub, which is huge. Bruno Silva, sub. That's not easy. Bruno Silva's been in there with some, guys like Alex Pereira. Andre Muniz, sub. Christoph Jocko, sub. So even though he doesn't have the best takedown defense, he's certainly capable of finishing guys. And I don't think Nazaruddin Imavov wants this fight to go to the ground. I think he's going to try to keep it standing. If Brendan Allen can get it to the ground, you're looking at a very interesting fight. And although I'd like to tell you that Imavov is going to win this fight, I do, and it's in Paris, I should lean that way. And he's more than a 2-1 favorite. But something tells me that Brendan Allen's about to bring his A game into this one. And he's not going to want to stand and strike for very long with Imavov. He's going to want to land takedowns. Some are going to get stuffed. It may be some clinch control up against the fence that leads to a takedown, something like that. But Brendan Allen's going to find a way to control 2 out of these 3 rounds. That's just what I believe is going to happen. And one of these guys is going to surge as a top-level contender with Hamza and Robert Whittaker coming just behind this in a few weeks. Well, in October, about a month. So, a lot happening in the middleweight division. It's been on fire lately. This is going to be another example of that. Look for a very close fight. You really can't go wrong either way here. It's going to be that close, in my opinion. Forget the odds. In my opinion, Brendan Allen wins by decision, controlling 2 out of 3 rounds to move to 25-5. I'm going with him, baby. Middleweight division, UFC, Paris. Yeah, we got to go with him in this one for sure. And like I said, the middleweight division is just ridiculous right now. I love it. It's like the old school welterweight a few years back when you had Leon Edwards on the come up. You had Hamza in there. Shavkat and Ian Gary were still young, but the top 5 or 6 was loaded. That's how the middleweight division is now. And having Hamza in that division is very, very interesting. But listen, let's jump right into the main event. Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis, lightweight fight. Renato says he's the better fighter. Saint Denis has something to prove. He's fighting in front of the home crowd in a very high level, very technical matchup where both guys are capable of finishing the fight at any time. And it's just going to be good all around, as the lightweight division is in every fight. But when you get to the highest levels, it's just magnified times 10. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this main event. Please believe it. Forget football this week. Forget college football. And I'm sure I'll be going back and forth between Colorado, Florida State, and UFC, but primarily the UFC. I'm just peeking in at the others. But listen, Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis. Let's get into it right now. In the lightweight division, your main event at UFC Paris, you got Renato Moicano taking on Benoit Saint Denis, a guy who was rolling until he fell into or ran into Dustin Poirier. So let's get into it. Moicano 19-5, Saint Denis 13-2. This is Brazil versus France. Both guys 5'11". Moicano's 35, kind of, out of that prime window, but still looking really good and really has been trending to me over the last 6 fights. Saint Denis just 28 years old. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He fights southpaw or left-handed. Moicano fights right-handed. Saint Denis more active, 5.7 significant strikes per minute to 4.4, and lands more takedowns, like a takedown and a half per round compared to one every other round for Moicano. And Saint Denis a decent favorite in this fight. But let's get into it. Moicano 72% takedown defense. Beat Jalen Turner, which means a lot to me because I think Jalen Turner's a good fighter. But he beat him in that one by second round KO. Also Drew Dober by decision, and Brad Riddell by submission. His last loss was to RDA, Rafael dos Anjos, at UFC 272. This is in March of 2022 by decision. So he hasn't lost in, over 2 years. Benoit Saint Denis, 69% takedown defense, so they're very close in takedown defense. Lost to Dustin Poirier by KO. A lot of people surprised by that. Shouldn't be. DP is a great fighter, right? Then before that, he beat Matt Frevola by KO. Thiago Moises, KO. Submitted Ismail Bonfim. That was a big one. KO'd Gabriel Miranda and subbed Nicholas Stolte. So this guy is a finisher. And this is a tough prediction because, Moicano is a really good fighter. This is no slouch. It's not a guy you're just going to run through. You're going to have to get in there and look good. It's a lightweight division fight. It's the best in the UFC. It's a main event. It's in Paris. So obviously Saint Denis is going to be the favorite. He's going to be jacked up. And I think that carries him over the top of this one. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him in this fight. Maybe he, looks slow and sluggish in the first round as he's, trying to make sure he doesn't get himself into trouble. He's coming off the KO loss, which will wake you up, right, and humble you. But yeah, Saint Denis is going to get the job done here. He's going to overwhelm Moicano on the feet or on the ground, wherever it goes. It just might take a little bit into the fight for that to take shape. It's going to look like an even fight for the first round and a half before Saint Denis takes over. But make no mistake, Saint Denis is going to take over. I think he wins this fight. I'd love to see him get a finish, but I think it will go to a decision, even though it is 5 rounds, because that's just how the lightweight division gets down. I mean, you're going to have 2 very good and technical fighters. But Saint Denis, in my opinion, wins this thing, whichever way it goes, on the feet, on the ground, and be the 14-2. That's my opinion. Lightweight division, UFC Paris. Yeah, I saw this a few weeks back, and I'm like, let me hold off on this because it really could go either way. But Saint Denis has a lot of hype right now. He's fighting at home. He got KO'd by Dustin Poirier, and it's always hard to rebound from a KO, but being in front of the home crowd will really help here in his response to that, because now you're thinking about it like, man, I'm capable of being beat. I got to be smart, be careful, but also go for a victory all in the same fight. So you're going to have all that playing out for Benoit Saint Denis, but the crowd will help. And this is a guy that I think is very good because it's not, I don't take picking against Renato Moicano lightly. I don't take it lightly because I know how good he is. And you better bring your A game. And if I'm wrong on this one, I'll be wrong for the obvious reasons that I overlook Moicano. But I just think Saint Denis is on a different level. This is a guy that's very, very good and technical. And this is a fight, if he wants to reach the next level, he's got to win. Because regardless of rankings and all that, Renato Moicano is a good guy to have a win against on your resume. Make no mistake about it. I mean, it's just a big win to have on your resume. But that'll do it, man. UFC Paris going down this Saturday. Not Saturday night. Saturday at 12 o'clock Eastern. And it's always fun doing the 12 o'clocks because it's just more live. There's a lot going on around me at 12 than there is at 10 o'clock at night for a pay-per-view event. So that's just what it is. But listen, that's a wrap. This your boy Chris Cross. I hope you have a great day. And God bless. As always, peace.